RMJ Movie Reviews back again. From the old school location. Guys, this is a lovely Friday the 13th. I have literally just rolled out the bed and I realized that because of business things and other adult things and all that kind of stuff, I have not been able to do anything on Jason or Friday the 13th or Mrs. Voorhees or any kind of horror stuff. I just been doing on the fly movie reviews. So, right now, I decided to, and this is just thrown together for fun, y'all, because I'm a big horror fan. I got a different tripod, so you see the angle's a little bit different from my traditional old school videos that I did from this location. But, I'm going to talk about Friday the 13th, Part 5, A New Beginning. One of the very controversial, movies from the original Paramount series of the 80s. Give you background. So this is going to be kind of a review / discussion. So this is going to be a little bit long. But I had originally saw Friday the 13th Part 5, A New Beginning, or when it first came to video. I believe, now this is going off of, I was maybe 6 years old at the time, or maybe 5. My older brother had rented it, which my older brother, I think, was he might have been 15 or 16 or something when that movie came on video. So he was big into that stuff. And I used to want to hang with the big kids. So my brothers and sisters never used to kick me out the room. I used to just hang around with them as they watched all this junk, as my parents used to call it, junk. My mother hated the Friday the 13th movies back then. She was appalled when she found out I had saw Final Chapter, I remember. But either way, I always liked the film. But then again, that's maybe bringing nostalgia into it. When I watch the film now, I actually do not think it's as bad as people make it out to be. But my perspective on it is, I saw it as a horror film on video. I had only seen one other movie with Jason, and I had only seen Final Chapter the year before on video. Which that was the first time I had seen Final. That was the first Jason movie I'd ever seen, and I watched that with my brother when it came on video. So at that point yet, I hadn't had a connection with the character of Jason yet because I hadn't seen 2 or 3 at that time. Because those came out in the real early 80s. So anyway, I always liked A New Beginning. And I've revisited multiple times over the years. And even upon watching it now, I think it's perfectly what it is. I think it is a cheeseball mid-80s slasher film with raunchy teenage characters. I mean, they're mental patients at a mental facility, but let's be honest, they're just sleazy teenagers and sleazy characters, and they're being picked off in creative and sadistic, brutal ways, period. And some guy who looks like Jason is the killer. And I do remember at the time when I saw it as a little kid that when that reveal came and after he fell on the spikes, I do remember as a little kid kind of thinking, I was so little that I wasn't really able to register the storylines and all that and Tommy from Part 4 because it wasn't Corey Feldman. But I just remember thinking, Jason's face didn't look like that in the other movie. The other movie was Final Chapter. And I was kind of confused, but I still was at least old enough to understand what the cop was saying to Pam at the end, where he's just like, yeah, it wasn't really Jason, it was this guy, da da da. So I was old enough to understand that aspect of the story. But again, I wasn't a teenager, so I had only seen one Jason movie. I was too little, so I didn't have that outrage. So for me, I can only remember the way I saw the film and the way I still think about the film now. I really honestly think, here's the things I do like about Friday 5. I love the idea that Tommy Jarvis has lost it and he's in a mental facility and you got a crazed killer loose at the mental facility. I think that's a great idea. And I like the fact that they kind of, the film kind of does it poorly, but I like the fact that they're trying to make it a whodunit, because when I rewatched the movie again recently, it didn't even dawn on me that they're kind of trying to implicate Tommy, that he might be the killer. I think after Joey gets chopped up or whatever, or there's like a kill that had just happened, they kind of got Tommy staring around in the background. And I'm kind of like, oh, they're kind of trying to allude to the fact that Tommy might be the killer and not Jason. So I thought that was pretty cool. I love the kind of the false images that Tommy sees in his mind of Jason standing in the backyard, or the bad dreams. I think all that stuff is cool. So the whodunit, and maybe Tommy has slipped over the edge, maybe he hasn't, and all the little false, I don't know if you call them her delusions or illusions, the delusions of Jason that Tommy is seeing everywhere. I think all that's great. Obviously, the high body count. This one has the highest body count. All us Friday fans know that. I think all the kills are great. Now, again, being a filmmaker and, taking editing and filmmaking in college, now I can see the way the kills are cut very short. That's the one thing I don't like about the movie, really, in watching it now, is just how a lot of the kills are just like bam, bam. Like Jimmy and, I think the guy's name is Jimmy, and Ray Sharkey's. On the commentary, they say that was Ray Sharkey's wife, the blonde lady, who's like, it's showtime. Her being killed with the axe is kind of like it's off. She just kind of goes, ugh, and it's off screen. I don't really particularly like that stuff. But I do think, obviously, the belt buckle to the eyes and the garden shears to the eyes are definitely noteworthy. I actually even like the kills in the beginning, the dream sequence where Jason comes out the graves and kills the two dudes that dig him up. I think those are pretty nasty, and there's other little things that are cool throughout the movie. I particularly like the scene where I like when he kills the two greaser guys, the one with the flare in the mouth. That was good, and I do like the scene where he kills Violet, even though that was originally she's supposed to be doing 1980s yoga moves, and he sticks the machete in a not so nice place, which I think that would have just been too much. And I have seen Crystal Lake Memories, and I've seen the footage. That would have just... They were trying to ape the thing from part 3 with the handstand. I really think that would have been too much. I think that would have been just going overboard. And I really do... I do like the scene where Violet gets killed in the reshoot that they've done. Because I like him slowly opening the doorknob, and you see the blood on his hand, and then him kind of slowly creeping up behind her, and you see his kind of like his legs like this, and she's in between his legs and the camera angle. I actually really like all that stuff. And the 80s theme song while she's flexing and doing all that. I think that's a really cool atmospheric scene. Unfortunately, I agree with a lot of other people that Friday the 13th Part 5's direction is pretty basic. It's pretty flat. When you come from God, why can I not remember? Joseph Zito. What Joseph Zito did with Part 4, which Part 4 is just really grim, really dark, very atmospheric. It just Friday the 13th, the final chapter, has a very just gritty, dark. It just has an uncomfortable feel to that movie, and you mix in the really gruesome kills. Friday 5 doesn't have that. It really only has that one, in my opinion. It really only has maybe 2 moments that really have a lot of eerie kind of atmospheric feel to them, and that's Violet's murder because of the 80s theme song and kind of him creeping up with the knife and the blood on his hand, and in particular, I think the scene at the end where Tommy is having the delusion of Jason being in the hospital room. I really like that, and I love the fact that it's almost like, even though it's in Tommy's mind, even though it's almost like 2 enemies staring at each other. And what I kind of like about that scene is it's filmed in such a way that, because Tommy had a previous flashback to this delusion that he killed Pam, so it's kind of like, okay, Tommy is still struggling with post-traumatic stress, but then Jason is in the room, so it's almost like this is the moment that continues from final chapter where Tommy and Jason have their moment. Even though it's in his mind, he has this moment where they're staring at each other. Tommy's not afraid of him anymore, and Jason disappears. Flip side of it, too, is that they end the movie with Tommy actually losing it and going to kill Pam. Whether you all think that scene is filmed good or not, that's up to you. At the time when I saw it as I was little, I kind of thought that was an unexpected twist. Like, I was really surprised. Like, this dude saved Dudley. He's Dudley to me from Different Strokes. That was also a big point for me when I was a little kid because I was a Different Strokes fan. And when I saw this movie, I was like, there's Dudley! That's all us old school guys in our 30s, 40s. That's Dudley. But, I really thought that was a big twist when I was a kid. I was kind of like, oh, this guy what? And I didn't understand it. The movie ended, and I was kind of like, it really surprised me when I was little. So I do like that aspect of it. I thought that was a brave choice to have Tommy ultimately lose it at the end, because John Shepard is playing the character so. Some people's opinion, they don't like him. They think he's flat. Some people like the cold, silent Tommy. Is he crazy? Is he not? I think for this particular film, I think it works in this movie. Now, had he done that in part 6, I don't think it quite would have worked, because in part 6, it's fully established that Jason is back from the grave and it's Tommy's fault. But I think for the whodunit aspect, and you're trying to wrestle with, is Jason back from the grave? Is he not? You know, I mean, maybe a cool idea would have even been, but they would never have done this at the time, because, I mean, they should have done it. But it would have been even cool if Roy was the copycat killer, but, what if Jason did come back from the grave also? So you have Roy killing people and Jason, or what if ultimately Roy was the killer, and then Jason popped out at the end and grabbed Roy and twisted his head on backwards? That would have been crazy. They wouldn't do that, though. You know, I'm surprised with all the coke they probably sniffed making the movie. I'm surprised they didn't come up with something like that. You know, I'm coming up with that totally sober. But I'm kidding around. But I do like those aspects of the movie. But again, kind of the issue you come into is very unengaging characters. Aside from, I really think, my opinion of characters that would have been interesting, obviously Miguel Nunez, even though he just kind of pops in and out. Had he been a bigger character in the movie, I think him and his girlfriend would have been pretty good with their thriller outfit. And, oh my God, people of color, especially in 80s movies, used to really have all that crazy kind of stuff. You know, the way they looked. But that's one of the things I also remember is the Ooh Baby. That's a great song for the movie. But obviously Shavar Ross, he's really good. Some people thought he was annoying, but, you know, I've got nostalgia for Different Strokes, so I think he's great in the movie. I think the gentleman who plays, I know it's not Pam's boyfriend, but he's the guy who runs the psychiatric clinic. I think that gentleman, he was in Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. I think he's really good. I really think he's good in the movie. I really think that he was a strong character. I think Pam was a strong character. And the stuttering guy who, he was in a couple of other movies throughout the age. I can't remember if he was in Soul Man or not with C. Thomas Howell. Maybe he might have been. But anyway, I liked him. And who's the other person I like? I liked in Grandpa's character, Shavar Ross. I think those guys, those were really strong actors who really could have rose it above. But, like, you know, really ultimately, at least like with Final Chapter had characters that popped in and popped out who were killed, introduced and killed. But I kind of felt like you were with their characters a little bit longer, you know, Ted and Jimbo. You got to know all of them more. Judy Anderson, I think is her name, from American Ninja, who I saw at Horror Hound. She's a very pretty lady. But, you know, you got to really be with their characters a lot more to really get the feel for them. And here, you know, you really, it's just, again, there's people popping in and popping out, and they're very unsympathetic characters. So, you know, but again, the body count is pretty good. You know, Junior getting decapitated, that's a pretty gnarly kill. I use the word gnarly. That's a pretty good kill. But I think that's ultimately what kind of, at least probably in the general Friday the 13th fan base of the original Paramount movies, I think ultimately the reveal that Jason is not the killer, the unsympathetic characters, and the flat direction, I think is what people really don't like. I had listened to, I believe it's the gentleman who helped write Crystal Lake Memories and the DVD. I forget the gentleman's name, but he did a commentary with the Sausage Factory with Pizzow and them for Friday 5, and I believe he said he saw it 2 times or 3 times when it was released. Obviously, I was too young to have seen the film theatrically, but I think I remember him saying that it was a packed house and how he said the movie started out, everybody was like, yay, great, it's back, Friday the 13th, blah, blah, blah. And he said gradually, as the movie just went on and on, like the audience kind of slowly turned against the movie and just like started going against it, like it sucked. And then he said when it was real that Jason wasn't the killer, people just were kind of just like, what? But I don't know, looking at it in hindsight, I just don't think it's a fair assessment. I think it delivers as a really good slasher film. I basically mean it goes to the 80s conventions. It has sleaze and a high body count, and it has a semi-interesting murder mystery with a couple tiny surprises thrown in. So I think that it works on that level. But again, nostalgia is probably crowding me because those of you who are fans of my channel, when I saw the film, I watched the film. We watched. So the household I grew up in, but we actually watched it as a family. My father was there. I don't think my mother was there, but I remember my father, my sister, my brother, and me. I believe the four of us watched it together because I still remember. Was it the scene where Pam goes in and the lightning flashes and you see the body scrolling across the bed and Pam goes, ah! Or no, Reggie sees it first. But I still remember watching that scene with my dad, and I like the bunk bed murder too. I think I'm digressing. I thought that was. I've seen clips on the internet, and also too. I want to go back to the MPAA chopping up all the murders and stuff. No pun intended. But the MPAA trimming the murder scenes. I have seen I've seen 3 clips, still photographs on the internet with the throat cutting of the greaser. Again, it's a photograph. It looks like it would have been a little bit nastier because you wouldn't have had that push in to kind of not show it looks like it was a wide angle where you fully saw it go all the way across and the camera sit there. So it looks like it was probably a little bit more uncomfortable and nasty. Also with the bunk bed murder, you can actually see it go through her bare naked chest. And I was kind of like, okay. Now, don't get me wrong. It looks fake because it has that 80s prosthetic look, which I love, But it does have a little bit more of a nastier look because she's bare-chested. And it does look like it would have been uncomfortable. But you can see it, and the machete is going straight through in her nipples. And I was just kind of like, oh, yeah, maybe, yeah. And I think the last one that they showed was, the stuttering boy, getting the meat cleaver to the face. That would have been cool. I think they should have left that one in. They did it in part 4, but obviously it was Tom Savini, so his looked much cooler. But I don't understand why they didn't leave the meat cleaver to the face. Don't get me wrong, it's still effective with the whoosh, and you can just hear that loud sound effect. So it's still effective. I think maybe they should have left it the way it was, but, But all in all, look, I'm a Friday the 13th New Beginning fan. I like the film. Granted, it comes from a slasher franchise that's not held in high regard. It's really only for cult audiences and people who love 80s stuff. So for me, I like the film, and I like that Roy is the killer in that one. And I like that Jason is not in the film. I think maybe the mystery aspect of it could have been maybe a little bit more interesting. But these movies were product, and they had to throw something together very quickly, and that was what they came up with because it was a year later. So that's my opinion on Friday the 13th Part 5: A New Beginning. And also I want to say Harry Manfredini's score. I really like his score for the movie. I think his score for that is fantastic. Not as great as 4 or 6's or even 3's, but I think the score in that film is pretty fantastic. But that's my opinion on Friday the 13th, A New Beginning. Thumbs up the video, subscribe to the channel, share the video, and leave comments down below about Friday the 13th Part 5, A New Beginning. And don't forget to hit the little bell. RMJ Movie Reviews. This probably be the last time you see me from the original location. I'll see you soon.